Do you know that saying, a picture is worth 1,000 words? There's another one that says a story is worth 1,000 pictures. How impactful is it when you can bring a story into your conversations with people? It is absolutely the way to uplevel your influence and frankly, your income in your sales conversations, whether you're talking to prospects or whether you're talking to existing clients. You are invited to the upcoming masterclass, Storytelling for Business. It's happening April 13th, the 20th, and the 27th. Now, in this workshop, you are going to get the framework for crafting your stories. You're going to learn which stories you need to be ready to tell. And in the workbook, you are going to have an opportunity to really kind of suss out your own stories. You might not think you have stories to tell yet, or maybe you're not sure which stories to tell when, but you're going to know that by the end of the 3 weeks. You're going to have a workbook packed full of notes and stories for you to bring into your conversations. We would love to have you come be with us. And here's a special link that's going to save you, my podcast listeners, $200 off the registration when you go and register right now, yoursalesmaven.com/storytelling. So registration is only open for a couple weeks. So go and register right now at yoursalesmaven.com/storytelling. We would love to have you in there with us. I'll see you soon.
Are you ready to boost your confidence when selling so you're able to close more deals? Nikki Rausch will show you how to build a foundation of skills and a mindset that creates sales success without feeling pushy or salesy and without fear of rejection. She is a sales strategist and coach with more than 25 years of sales experience and is master certified in neuro-linguistic programming. This is a radically different approach to selling. It's a no sleaze, no slime, and no stress approach to building your business. This is Sales Maven. Here's Nikki.
Welcome, and thank you for listening to the Sales Maven Show. I'm your host, Nikki Rausch. I'm your own personal sales maven, here to offer you tips, techniques, and strategies to master your sales conversations. Today's episode is about how to stop overcommitting and then leaving clients disappointed. Maybe you've been there. I think many of us have. So let's talk about it. The purpose of today's episode is to give you some questions to kind of slow yourself down, to ask yourself, to keep from overcommitting. And then also I'll be sharing a really simple language tip of how to communicate appropriately with a client so that you can set realistic expectations. So that's where we're going to go. Now, before we jump into content, I want to thank you so much for listening to the show. And I want to thank you for those of you who've taken the time to share the show and or leave a review for the show. I'm so, so grateful for that. If you haven't yet and you would like to, please do. And if we haven't connected yet, let's connect. I am so thrilled always to hear from listeners. It's truly a treat for me. So if you would like to make somebody's day, you can make mine and reach out and tell me what it is that you've enjoyed about a particular episode, or just share why you listen to the podcast, any of it. And I love to see pictures if I get to go on walks with you and you listen to the podcast, or if you're doing something like folding laundry, I like to know about that too. Some of the members of the Sales Maven Society will post pictures that happened recently about where people were when they were listening to the podcast. It's super fun and thrilling to get to hear that. So thank you for that. I appreciate each and every one of you. All right. So this whole topic about overcommitting and then feeling like you're leaving clients disappointed. And I say feeling because if you have that impression, if they haven't actually said it to you, you might just have that impression and it may or may not be true. But if that's what you're feeling, like that doesn't feel good. So let's change that. And if it is true, if people are communicating with you that they're feeling disappointed or let down in some way by the way that a situation is handled, then hopefully today's episode is going to help prep you to keep that from happening again in the future, because it can really mess with your mindset. It can start to erode some confidence. And that's the last thing you want to do in order to be successful at sales. We want to continue to boost your confidence and really raise your game when it comes to the way you communicate with your clients. So this particular topic, the reason I'm sharing this with you this week is anytime something comes up multiple times for me, I think, ooh, I should turn this into some kind of content. And now with the podcast, a lot of times it becomes a podcast episode. So this topic has come up now from multiple clients in multiple industries. And the questions have come in a lot of different variations of the question. But ultimately it comes down to this overcommitting and then leaving clients feeling disappointed. Sometimes I call this the overpromising and then under-delivering. That's the last thing you want to do. A lot of times, they say all the time in sales, you want to under-promise and over-deliver so clients are feeling delighted with the value that they got or the speed of your delivery or whatever that is. And that's a nice concept to under-promise and over-deliver. And yet sometimes that's not even possible, either because of what's going on in the world or what's going on in your life or just how the day is going. But there are things that are outside of your control sometimes. And so it's a nice concept to think, I'm going to always under-promise and over-deliver. And again, I feel like it's one of those benchmarks that's kind of hard to nail consistently. So when you do it, pat yourself on the back, acknowledge yourself for doing it, and be realistic about commitments and what you're capable of, what you want to do. So I mentioned at the beginning that I have 4 questions. These are 4 questions that I have to ask myself before saying yes a lot of times to things. And especially when clients are showing up with last minute requests or urgent type issues. So these 4 questions are ones that you can write down and post somewhere so that you can remember to ask yourself this. So question number 1, and again, be realistic about yourself. As a matter of fact, I'm going to add something to the end of these questions. So the first question is this something I want to do? Now, somebody that I listen to, I don't know if you know who Andy Stanley is. He's a preacher for North Point Church. I listen to him. I like a lot of his stuff. And he always adds a lot of times to the end of his questions, really. I think it's so smart. And I do this now with when I'm asking myself these questions. So is this something I want to do? Really? So that means getting kind of dig deep, get honest. I can be somebody who will have that knee-jerk yes response to something. And at first it kind of sounds like fun. And then later, as it gets closer to me delivering on whatever it was that I said, I start to try to figure out, I wonder what could happen in the world so that I wouldn't have to do this. I don't know. Will I get sick? Not things that you really want to be thinking about. I'm not saying they're positive things, but that's not the best response, right? So in reality, I should be asking myself, is this something I want to do really? So that's question number 1. Number 2, is this something I can do? When you look at your schedule, when you look at, what's kind of coming down the pike for you of what your commitments already are, ask yourself, is this something I can do really? And if the answer is no, then you do not want to commit to somebody. You have to be willing to say no. You have to be willing to let these opportunities go that you want to hold on to, right? If you're trying to collect as many opportunities as you can, or as many client projects as you can, but then you leave people feeling disappointed because you didn't deliver in either a timely fashion or the best work, is that really going to help your business grow? In the long term, probably not, because your repeat business is going to plummet. So is this something I can do? And sometimes that has to do with, I guess when I think about this, it also has to do with your capabilities, right? It's maybe if I stretch myself, I could kind of do this, but it's not really my wheelhouse. So do I want to do this? As a matter of fact, I had a client reach out to me not too long ago and asked me about offering some coaching to somebody in her life that wanted some coaching in a particular area. Now, there was a part of me that's I I probably could do that. But when I really took a step back and I asked myself, is this something I can do really? What immediately came to mind is there are people out there that do this professionally. And somebody in particular came to mind that I know is more capable of delivering on this request than I am. So even though there was a part of me that felt flattered, super flattered, that she was asking me to do this for somebody that, obviously she thought highly enough of me that she would put me in this position with this person. And I have to take a step back and go, well, I actually think highly enough of her that I'm going to be really honest here and say, I think there's somebody better than me for this particular project, which I then referred this other person, got permission from the other person first, and then referred them to this opportunity. Third question, is this something I have time to do? Now, maybe the second question and this third question can kind of go together. But if you think about capabilities more for question 2, and then question 3 is really about your time, that's another really important thing. I love to say yes. I like to delight people. I like to deliver. You probably do too. We never want people to feel disappointed. But what can sometimes happen is a lot of opportunities will come my way at the same time. And when I'm thinking opportunities, the ones that take the most time for me are trainings. So if I have to deliver a training to an organization or to a group, I have to think about, is that training already done? So there's not a lot of prep for me, or is this something that is going to require quite a bit of prep time? Do I have to create a custom workbook for them? Do I want to go and put all the examples and customize it to their business? That is quite a time suck. So I can't do 3 of those in a week. That's just not even possible. Sometimes I can't do 3 of them in 2 weeks. So there are certain opportunities I have to be willing to say to somebody, I would love to do that for you. And here's when I'm available, right? And it has to be outside of what I've already committed to. I can feel that right now in my own schedule. I have quite a bit of training to deliver in the month of, depending on, you're probably going to listen to this in March, but in the month of February and through March, and now even starting booking into April, quite a few things to deliver and trainings. And that's a lot of time for me. So there are going to be things that I'm going to have to say no to because I just cannot take on certain projects that require a lot of customization. And then here's the fourth question. This is one of those, you got to really dig deep, get down and dirty, and be really honest when you answer this question. Is this something I will do? Really? Because it can be really easy to give yes, it's something I want to do until it gets close. And yes, it's something I can do. And yes, I have some time to do it. But will I actually do it? You can get out of integrity really easy on this last question because you might say yes to 1, 2, and 3. But if you can really be honest with yourself, is this something I will do? The answer, yourself. I mean, we can tell ourselves lies, but really, you look yourself in the mirror, is this something I will do? And sometimes the answer is no. And even though you want the answer to be yes, the answer is no. And so instead of overcommitting and saying yes, you will stand in your place of integrity when you say no to those particular things. So those are the 4 questions. Now, it's really easy to have these knee-jerk yes responses. Client shows up. Can you do this? Yes. Can you have this to me on Friday? Yes. Can you, whatever, jump through this hoop, that hoop, and this other hoop? Yes. With no qualifiers. And then you haven't set realistic expectations for the client. So then it's well, when are they expecting me to deliver? Well, in my mind, I'm thinking they probably want it by Friday. And now you're working late into the night, getting up extra early, dropping balls on other projects to try to deliver this, all because you didn't set realistic expectations, because your knee-jerk response was yes. So be really careful to check yourself with these knee-jerk responses. I think any knee-jerk response to any question is one of those things, like it's learning how to slow yourself down. I know I talked about recently on a podcast episode where I talked about being on autopilot. Knee-jerk responses to me are autopilot responses. Like we're trained to say yes to clients. We're trained. We hear this all the time. The client's always right. Customer's always right. You always want to say yes to your clients. And I love to say yes. It's actually one of my favorite ways to frame an answer to a question. However, if it's just a standard knee-jerk response that you have, it's probably time for you to learn how to slow yourself down, catch yourself, which is why I gave you these 4 questions, frankly, so that you can decide. Now, I'm not sure if I've talked about this on the podcast before. This comes from my background in neurolinguistic programming, where we learned about people who are in time versus people who are on time. It's been a while since I have studied this, so bear with me here as I try to explain this. People who are in time are the people who can kind of get lost. It's like those people see, oh my gosh, I noticed that I don't need to leave the house for 5 minutes. So I'm just going to do this one thing before I leave the house because, it needs to get done. But the one thing that they do actually takes 10 or 15 minutes to complete. So now when they've left the house, now they're 10 minutes behind. Those people, some of these people live in your house. Some of these people are you. You live in this like in time. It's like time gets away from you. If you're somebody who is consistently late for things, but your intention is always to be on time, but you are consistently late, you are probably living in time. You get lost in time. You don't really have a very good concept of how long things actually take you to do. You think, oh, it's going to take me, again, this project is going to take me 30 minutes and 2 days later, you're not done. That's being in time versus those of us, and I tend to be more of an on-time person. Some of it's because I was raised by a mother who was always late, and I used to get really embarrassed about being late. I used to set my clock. I used to have like the what am I trying to say? Like your alarm clock. That's what in the good old days on your nightstand, you had something called an alarm clock, not just a phone. Now it's just my phone, but you had an alarm clock and it had like a timer. It had a clock on it, little red dial, and you used to set it for the time. Like it wasn't set automatically for you. You actually had to set the time. I know, crazy. Those of you who are young that are like, what? Yeah, we used to actually have to set the time. We'd have to call a number and figure out what time it was. And then the operator or there was a number you could call and it would tell you what time it is. And then you would set the time on your alarm clock. So yeah, little off topic there. Anyway, I used to always set mine 10 minutes ahead because I thought if I was always rushing my mom out the door 10 minutes before we actually had to leave, that we might actually show up on time. Now, unfortunately, my mom did not go along with this. She did not set her clock, her watch or anything for the 10-minute ahead of time. So she would just get annoyed that I always wanted to leave early. But she's also somebody who lives in time, and we were always late. Nowadays, you can't really I don't even think you can set your clocks 10 minutes ahead. I guess if it's a wall clock and you're actually manually setting it, but like your phone, like the time is set for you automatically. So you kind of always know what time it is. I still like to be early. I also realized when I moved to, I grew up in Boise, Idaho. When I moved to Washington, I grew up in a family where we ate dinner at like 6 o'clock, usually between 6 or usually like 5 or 6, like so pretty early. My husband now teases me that I'm like, I was always meant to be an old lady that that likes the early, what is it? The early special. Cause I still like to eat early, but anyway, so I would get invited to things and I would always want to show up a few minutes early. And when I moved to Washington and I started hanging out with like people my own age, that had a very different upbringing than I did, they would think it was so weird. They would say, hey, we're all going to get together, come over for our house, to dinner at 7. And I would show up at 6:55 because I didn't want to be late for dinner. And they would be like, why are you here so early? We're not even ready. And dinner's not going to be served until 9:30. I was used to blow my mind. Yeah. So that's my on-time schedule story. Now, this idea of these things that you sometimes will overcommit to. Here's another example of one, business one, is I cannot tell you how many times people say, I'm going to start sending out, weekly emails to my list. I'm going to send out a newsletter. I'm going to share some type of a technique or a tip. And people have and they tell everybody, they tell their list, expect from now on, once a week, you're going to get a tip on whatever their topic of expertise is. And that quickly falls to the wayside because they don't ask themselves these 4 questions. Again, is this something I want to do? Is this something I can do? Is this something I have time to do? And is this something I will do? A lot of times the answer to number 3 and 4 to people who tell me they've never sent out anything to their list and now they're going to commit to writing some type of a message once a week usually is no to 3 or 4 of those questions. So I always say, start small. You can always work your way up to sending more, emails. If you find that you can do it once a month consistently for a few months, great. And then if you want to go every other week, okay, how does that work in your schedule? Because once you commit to a weekly tip or strategy, and people start getting used to reading it, and then you drop the ball, you stop doing it. All of a sudden, you have now overcommitted and you're leaving people feeling disappointed. I know people do this. Sometimes they take breaks from their podcast. Now I've said this and I'm like, oh no, something's going to happen. I'm going to have to take a break from my podcast. I hope not. And the thing is I've committed to putting out a weekly podcast. So that means that I have to schedule time. And I had to really ask myself these 4 questions before I even decided to do a podcast. So anyway, if that's helpful. Now, let's talk about some language when somebody reaches out to you, a client reaches out to you, and they want you to do something that you probably, again, you want to do, you can do it. But when you get to number 3, is it something you have time to do? You need to set realistic expectations. So the answer isn't yes. The answer is, I appreciate you asking. Here's what I can do. And then you insert a realistic expectation. Again, you don't need to necessarily under-promise and over-deliver, but you definitely don't want to over-promise. And then, I think I said that backwards. So you don't want to under-promise and then over-deliver. So now you really don't want to over-promise and under-deliver, because that's when people feel disappointed in you. And you don't want to leave people feeling disappointed. That gets into your head, again, messes with your confidence, and also messes with your integrity and trust that people have. Do they feel safe with you? If you're somebody who is always over-committing and under-delivering, you're breaking rapport, you're breaking safety. Super important to get that out. You got to stand in your place of integrity and authority. And when you can make a commitment, you have to keep it. So you don't have to commit. That's the thing. You can say to somebody, I appreciate you asking. That isn't a project that I have time to take on right now. However, I could take it on next month or 2 months from now, or I have a wait list and we're happy to put you in the queue and pull you up when we have a spot open. All of these things are okay as long as you communicate them properly to the client. So again, one more time, that phrase is, I appreciate you asking. Here's what I can do. You don't even have to say I can't do that and here's why. You don't need a bunch of story. You just say, I appreciate you asking. Here's what I can do. And then now the ball's kind of back in their court to say, yes, that works for me. And yes, I want to be on your wait list, or yes, I want to get in the queue for next month, whatever that is. And now you're going to deliver on the expectation that you set. Super important. All right. So I hope this episode was helpful for you. I hope that you're able to take away those 4 questions and really challenge yourself to answer them when it comes to making commitments and making sure that you're leaving people feeling delighted as often as possible and never disappointed. Now, you may have heard that I like to have a theme for the year. So my theme for 2022 is the year of connection. I think it's so important to continue to expand your connections. So I am kind of opening I don't actually have a Rolodex or my little black book, but I'm opening my connections to share some of the favorite people that I have in my life and in my business that may benefit you in some way. So today, the connection that I want to share is Jamie Van Cuyk of Growing Your Team. Now, I actually didn't tell Jamie I was going to do this, so I hope that's okay. But Jamie is amazing, and her business, she works high achieving small businesses, hire her company to help them through the hiring process with hiring, process education, support, and even full service recruiting. And I'm bringing Jamie to the forefront today because I've been getting asked a lot. People are saying, oh, I need to expand my team. Who do you recommend? Or Nikki, do you know anybody that does this or has this skill set? And I always just say, call my friend Jamie, because she's going to take care of you. And instead of you trying to figure it out yourself, hire a professional. She knows what she's doing. Now, Jamie has a successful podcast called Growing Your Team, and you can find her website at www.growingyourteam.com. Pretty easy to find her and find out more about what she offers. But if you're looking to expand your team so that you can continue to deliver on your commitments to your clients, I think she's a fantastic resource. Check out her podcast, check out her website, and see what's possible for you. All right. If we haven't connected yet, I mentioned at the beginning, let's do that. I tend to hang out on Instagram under Your Sales Maven. I'm also on LinkedIn under Nikki Rausch. You can find me there. You can follow the business page Sales Maven. And I'd love to hear from you. And if you're ready to take your next step in your sales journey and really expand and enhance your existing skills, boost that confidence, then come join me in the Sales Maven Society. This is my monthly coaching program. We meet twice a month for group coaching. You have access to my training center where tons and tons of training on sales is there for you to kind of go at your own pace. And you get access to me in a private group to ask your questions. And more importantly, you will be involved in the most amazing community of business professionals. I honestly just pinch myself every day at how awesome the members are. They are so amazing. So this program, it's a monthly membership, ongoing. You can come for a month and leave, or you can come and stay. We want you to stay and hang out with us. You can come and join your first month by going to salesmavensociety.com. It's $147 a month for the group coaching program. And you can try it out for your first month for only $47 by entering the coupon code 47trial, all one word, 47TRIAL, in the coupon box on the page. Come join us. We'd love to have you. All right. Thanks for listening. Good luck. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks for listening to Sales Maven. Visit us online at yoursalesmaven.com/maven for more resources to boost your confidence and skills.
Do you know that saying, a picture is worth 1,000 words? There's another one that says, a story is worth 1,000 pictures. How impactful is it when you can bring a story into your conversations with people? It is absolutely the way to up-level your influence and frankly, your income in your sales conversations, whether you're talking to prospects or whether you're talking to existing clients. You are invited to the upcoming masterclass, Storytelling for Business. It's happening April 13th, the 20th, and the 27th. Now, in this workshop, you are going to get the framework for crafting your stories. You're going to learn which stories you need to be ready to tell And in the workbook, you are going to have an opportunity to really kind of suss out your own stories. You might not think you have stories to tell yet, or maybe you're not sure which stories to tell when, but you're going to know that by the end of the 3 weeks. You're going to have a workbook packed full of notes and stories for you to bring into your conversations. We would love to have you come be with us. And here's a special link that's going to save you, my podcast listeners, $200 off the registration when you go and register right now, yoursalesmaven.com/storytelling. So registration is only open for a couple weeks. So go and register right now at yoursalesmaven.com/storytelling. We would love to have you in there with us. I'll see you soon.